Hey all, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Thanks for joining me, Dorothy, on Through an Orthodox Christian Lens. It is October 6, 2025. I was busy most of the day with my computer having some space issues, so it took me a while to get that figured out, for the time being anyway. And I'm going to be talking about the India tariff issue this evening, as you saw in the title of this video. So let's get started. Trump doubles U.S. tariffs on India over Russian oil. New Delhi has denounced the move as unfair, unjustified, and unreasonable. The U.S. will be imposing an additional 25% tariff on Indian imports, the White House has said, pointing to the nation's continued purchase of Russian oil. The move would bring the total levy on one of America's key trade partners to 50%. President Donald Trump had previously accused New Delhi of financing the Ukraine conflict through oil purchases from Russia, vowing to slap the South Asian nation with additional penalties for its defense and trade ties with Moscow on top of the 25% tariff he imposed last week. Did anybody else think this sounds ridiculous? I mean, really. He thinks that basically he's accusing India of conspiring with Russia in this supposed, oh my gosh, I mean, I can't even, it's so ridiculous. But let me just go on and we'll get into the other stuff. I find that the government of India is currently directly or indirectly importing Russian Federation oil, Trump said in the executive order published by the White House on Wednesday. According to the document, the tariff is to come into force 21 days from its publication, i.e. in late August. The Indian Foreign Ministry slammed the move, calling it unfair, unjustified, and unreasonable. India's trade with Russia is based on market factors and aimed at ensuring the nation's energy security. It said, New Delhi will take all actions necessary to protect its national interests. Yes, nobody's allowed to have their own national interest. You have to bow down to our country, America. Sorry, just really bothers me. Last week, Trump criticized India's economic ties with Russia. Yeah, Moscow and New Delhi can take their dead economies down together for all I care. Okay, I'm just, this is just so aggravating. He shows no respect for other people's countries, how dare they have something else they want to do. And they're looking at their interests in their region of what they think is important for their people. And they're not dead economies. It was late, I think it was like late November or early December when I did a video with a couple of economists, and one of them was, is it Richard Wolff? Anyway, he said that India's economy was growing way faster even than China's. So this whole thing, he always says things that make, he just continuously speaks hyperbolic, and so just disrespectful. Now, yes, I realize he's always been like that, but I think he's 10 times worse than he used to be. So, let me go back to this. Claiming that the U.S. was doing very little business with India. Yes. He went on to describe the Asian nation's tariffs on foreign goods as too high. India is America's 10th biggest trade partner. In responding to America's threats to impose secondary sanctions on Russia's trade partners, including India, China, and Brazil, Moscow stated that it believes sovereign states should have and do have the right to choose their own trade partners. Yes, this should be a no-brainer, common sense. Good Lord. as well as to independently determine which avenue of cooperation best served their national interests. Of course. Of course. The world does not revolve around the United States. Maybe it did 30 years ago, even 25 years ago. It doesn't now. And he needs to get over this, but he's not going to, because as we heard him say, he basically thinks that if the dollar is not the world currency to trade in and do all this stuff, that it's like akin to a world war. Well, he's certainly bringing us to the third one. Then let me go in and just remind everybody of this, the hypocrisy thing they're saying. U.S. Treasury Secretary Bessent called India not a great global actor for refining Russian oil, ignoring top Russia's oil buyers like Europe and Turkey. Yeah. Former U.S. envoy admitted the U.S. asked India to buy Russian oil to stabilize global prices. There's also the issue with the India bought Russian oil because the U.S. wanted it to do so at a price cap. That was not a violation. America didn't want the oil price to go up. There was the other issue where we actually get our fertilizer and uranium from Russia, but we're not, of course, Trump in a way is tariffing the American companies with all the, for whatever imports are coming in from these particular countries he's tariffing. So, the whole thing is, it's just embarrassing and it's shameful. And let me just remind Trump, although he doesn't care anyway, let's look at that old map in case we've forgotten where countries are in the on the globe. We have Russia here at the top. We have China right below it. And then there's India. Now, if I were an Indian, would I want to get oil all the way across the ocean from America that costs more money? Or would I want to go to Russia where the oil is cheaper and guess what? Closer. My son reminded me of this several times in the past, and I'd forgotten that he had said it, but it reminded me today after seeing this. I mean, I remember several months ago, the U.S. they were having a fit over, this was before Trump was in, they're having a fit that the Philippines wanted to trade with China, with I forget what the product was, maybe it was oil, who knows. No, it wasn't oil because China doesn't have oil too. So I would assume it was some kind of trade issue. Oh no, you can't do that, you have to trade with us. Why? Look where the Philippines are. Right there. Next to China. And saying, again. Oh my gosh. Okay. Again, this isn't about geography, apparently. This is about keeping the American empire from becoming a not the main superpower, as we know. Now, I'm going to share a couple of videos for you. Just want to play it because I found it interesting. Maybe good old John Helmer. He's talking about Trump's issue with Russia. This was a couple days ago, I think. Yeah, a day ago. I'm just going to play it for you. Particular portion here.
He meant July 29, July 30 last week. We had a whole conversation with them as well, not with Putin,
talking about Rubio,
but with some of Putin's top people in hopes of arriving at some understanding on a path forward that would lead to peace. And we've not seen any progress on that. So between July 10 and July 31, the Secretary of State is saying there's no new concept that we'll accept. There's no new idea that we'll accept. Okay? Now, then follows what Trump does. And there's in the sequence, Trump attacks the dead Indian, dead Russian economies. Dmitry Medvedev writes a reply on his Telegram account playing on Trump's insult to the dead Indian economy, the dead Russian economy, by reminding Trump that perhaps he watched too many Hollywood movies about the Walking Dead, which is a subtle Russian reference to the state of Trump's brain, and the fact that he can't read. He watches movies. He understands images. He doesn't understand terms. Why am I emphasizing that? Why is Medvedev emphasizing that? Pretty subtle way. Answer, we just explained it. The Russian side have 33 terms on the table in Istanbul. They then shorten it in July 10 with Rubio to 4. And by 31 of July, 14 days later, the Americans keep dismissing it. And then the question becomes, does Trump even know? Does Trump even read? Does Trump even understand what the Russian terms are? I mean, if we're negotiating, and Trump is supposed to be the master transactional negotiator, if he's all of those things, does he understand the numbers on the cards? Does he even understand the cards in front of his hands? Medvedev is suggesting he watches too many Walking Dead movies, and he needs to understand that there is the dead hand. Now, what's that mean? In retrospect, Trump calls it a threat. What the dead hand means is the Russian program for automatic, full retaliation of all nuclear weapons aimed at the United States. It means that if the United States has launched preemptively or a surprise attack on Russia, acting first, then, and if, God forbid, the Russian leadership, civilian and military, were to be destroyed, the dead hand is a program for reacting, for retaliating, for defending. And that's the basis, the very foundation of mutual assured destruction that deters the nuclear escalation. We think Trump doesn't even understand the dead hand is a reaction to an American sneak attack of the kind Trump celebrated when he says he performed it against Iran. Okay? So then Trump reacts to Medvedev, he says, by saying, I'm going to move 2 submarines closer. Let me point out that between what Medvedev said, which is a reaction to Trump, and what Trump said later, after Medvedev, blaming Medvedev, President Putin was in the Varlam monastery with the Belarus president, Alexander Lukashenko, and was asked about the Oreshnik. This is before Trump reacts. And Trump says, getting confused with the sequence. President Putin says, the Oreshnik is now in serial production. It's no longer a test missile. And it has been deployed with the troops, meaning it's in fire positions with active forces operationally, which means it's aimed at the Ukraine, at Germany, Poland. Anyone that attacks Russia faces the Oreshnik. Now, we don't need to go again into what the Oreshnik is, but it's one of the most powerful conventionally armed or nuclear armed hypersonic missiles against which the United States and Europeans have no effective defense. And the Russian side demonstrated that once with Dnipropetrovsk. And now we have serial production. In addition, President Putin said that they will be deployed by the end of the year in Belarus after the firing positions and operational positions have been properly prepared. Okay? Then Trump made his nuclear submarine threat. It's my view that if you look at the sequence, what's happening here? Two things. One is Trump doesn't understand and doesn't want to understand the negotiating concessions which the Russian side are making, shortening a number of terms and so forth and so on. Second, he doesn't have any interest in making any concessions on the US side. Mm-hmm. Third, he wants capitulation. Capitulation or total obliteration are the lines he's adopted on all his fighting fronts. In Gaza, in Palestine, against Hamas, in Iran, against the Iranian government, with the partnership of Israel, on the Ukraine front, on the Ukraine battlefield, against Russia. That's Trump's line.
And so, Yemen, he has achieved.
Yes, we could go on. Yes, Yemen, and there are other places too. Yes, and obviously the China war and the trade war with India. We'll come back to that in this program. Capitulation or total obliteration. Total obliteration is Trump's term. So where do we come to with that clip? He's asked, what is Stephen Witkoff's message for the Russians? Just as you said, the man goes off onto a wandering repetition of all the pseudo peace agreements he's reached in Palestine, in the Congo, in Kosovo, all Pakistan, in all of these things are total figments of his imagination. That's what's in his brain. The terms for negotiation, not interested. He even doesn't show he knows. So as we approach 2 points ahead of our program, Witkoff goes to Moscow. Why is Witkoff going to Moscow now if Rubio says a few days ago he met with Putin's top people and Rubio already said no progress there? Answer, what exactly is Witkoff saying? Or what exactly is he being told to listen to? And what will President Putin tell him? And more important, will President Trump understand or listen to anything Witkoff comes back with, as this is what Putin told you? Do you nobody dares to say to Trump, do you understand, sir? But that's this, when you look at these things in sequence, time measures. What you see, Trump's nuclear threat is a retaliation against Putin saying, we've got a Reshnik. Do you really want to come up against us? Well, Trump doesn't have a weapon. He doesn't have an anti-aircraft or anti-missile defense system.
This is an important point right there that he says. We don't have the anti defense system. We can't stop the hypersonic missiles, especially the Oreshnik. So basically what I took out of that is the only option they have is a nuclear weapon, America, my country, because they don't have any of these weapons, these more advanced weapons. Apparently, they haven't popped up anywhere. And I've been listening to military analysts, and they say they don't have a weapon to stop that. So the only weapon they have that's not conventional, because they don't have conventional weapons that do that, anything like that, they have to go to the nuke. Not good.
That can defeat or neutralize a Reshnik. So he says something that's a nuclear escalation that isn't properly appreciated. He doesn't understand it. It's more of his performative display of you capitulate, I obliterate you. Exactly the language he used with Iran. Now, where are we here? When he says we're moving nuclear submarines closer to Russia, what does he mean? Well, President Putin's spokesman, Dmitry Peskov, took what I'd call the poo-poo approach. It's not serious. We have to be very serious, says Mr. Peskov a day ago in Moscow to reporters. When we talk about nuclear matters, we have to be very serious. Okay. That doesn't quite say we don't treat Trump's threat as unserious. Why? Because Trump could be meaning, or the Pentagon could be meaning, that we are moving we don't need to move. The United States doesn't need to move its ballistic Trident, Ohio-class submarines carrying Trident missiles. They're ballistic and they can be fired at Russia from great distances. They don't need to be moved. On the other hand, moving closer implies the use of flat trajectory nuclear armed missiles. Close and faster, less warning time. And those close areas mean less warning time, escalation of nuclear threat. Now, when you escalate against Russia, you come up against a very clear doctrine that Russia reserves the right of preemptive defense against a coming attack. So is that what Trump meant by closer and faster, more and more threatening? Well, whether he understands it or not, that's what he launched. Why do I say this? Because this is already in print yesterday afternoon in Moscow. Vzglyad, which is a platform security analysis close to Kremlin, close to the Security Council Defense Ministry and the intelligence officers, said this is the real new escalation threat. Why is Peskov saying poo-poo? It's not serious. Well, it is serious, potentially. And in military terms, one's always prepared. So what are we doing here? We're trying to say Trump isn't interested in negotiation. He is reacting to Putin's Oreshnik moment, a threat, yes. Deployment. And so he says, I can send nuclear missiles close to you, faster. That's what he's doing. That's the escalation. And yet, tomorrow, Witkoff comes to Moscow to say something or to use his ears in a fashion that Rubio rejected only a few days ago. What's that mean? I don't know what it means from a US point of view when a president does things like this. What we have to be concerned about is that Trump can't bear parity in violence, in escalation. He won't tolerate anything but escalation dominance of his own. Mm-hmm. An empire expands, make the empire great again, make America great again, means to him total escalation, control, and dominance. Mm-hmm. He was reacting against Putin, not Medvedev. Mm-hmm. Not Medvedev. So when Mr. Peskov said a few hours ago, only one person speaks for Russia, President Putin, not Mr. Medvedev. There are many views in the Security Council, he says, but only one person speaks. You could say Mr. Peskov is playing politics, internal politics in Moscow, and saying, don't listen to Mr. Medvedev, listen to my boss. That's factional, and it would be unusual for the presidential spokesman on something as sensitive as this to be speaking in factional terms. What he meant was, listen to what President Putin said. And what President Putin said, that even the Western bloggers seem to have missed, is the Oreshnik is now deployed and ready to fire. just as he said, and we talked about it before last week, we think he told Netanyahu the S-400's ready to defend Iran and will be fired at you if you allow your planes to try to attack, you or Trump's planes, try to attack Iran again. So we've reached a new level, in my judgment, right now, in the last few days, a new level of Russian deterrence and readiness to fight back.
Okay. So he makes a great point. Again, yes, only Trump, only the United States can have the power to escalate and be at the top. Not anybody else. And he shows this every time he does something. You know, it's always there. It's always the way he's speaking. I'm king of the world. NATO leaders do whatever I want, he says. The U.S. has become the hottest country anywhere in the world, the president has claimed. It's becoming the most hated country in the world because he doesn't know how to treat people with respect from other countries, even supposed allies. U.S. President Trump has claimed that NATO leaders are now completely aligned with his agenda. Maybe they're afraid he's going to do something impulsive and blow everybody up, you know, with these nukes. And credited his leadership for what he described as a dramatic turnaround in America's global standing. In an interview with CNBC on Tuesday, Trump said the U.S. has gone from a dead country to the hottest country anywhere in the world by far, within several months since his inauguration. That was told to me by every leader of NATO, which they do whatever I want. Every leader of NATO said that, huh? Is it like John Helmer said, a figment of his imagination? He said, claiming similar praise from Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Qatar. I'm very happy to help, he says. Trump has for years pressured NATO members to ramp up defense spending while warning that the U.S. would not defend countries that fall short of the bloc's targets. At a key NATO summit in July, bloc members committed to increasing defense spending to 5% of GDP by 2035, up from the previous threshold of 2%, even though we know many of these NATO countries, if not all of them, do not have the ability, the finances, the money to go up to 5%. I've seen that from analysts for several months now. Trump also announced that the EU would pay the U.S. 100% of the cost of all American-made military equipment under a new funding deal, and adding that much of it will go to Ukraine. During the summit, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte referred to Trump as Daddy, who has to sometimes use strong language. Okay, so this is all review, what we've already heard. And so, again, it's the same kind of thing, which is kind of like what Larry Johnson was saying the other day, former CIA analyst, had said that he brings this up every now and then, that, you know, Trump had said that everybody was coming to him, kissing his butt, basically. This tariff thing, you know, which again is being used as a weapon and is not being used in the correct way. I now have a video to show you, a short one. Let's see if I can find it. Lieutenant Colonel Karen Kwiatkowski, her thoughts on his behavior, and we're gonna just listen to this short piece.
Had mentioned a now viral interview that my friend and former Fox colleague Tucker Carlson had. I could stop here and you could say which one, because there are so many, but I'm talking about the one with your former colleague, Lieutenant Colonel Tony Aguilar, who is a real military hero because he fought in all these deployments and now condemns them, and who has been on the ground in Gaza and stated to Tucker Carlson he has never seen more horrific slaughter anywhere in the world in his 25 deployments and his 30 years in the military, he's a graduate of West Point, than he saw in Gaza. When Donald Trump was asked if there's genocide, he said, I don't see any, but he does see starvation. And then he said, oh, and we're sending them some food and they haven't thanked us.
Here we go again. I remember when that happened, and I was appalled by what he said. Oh, well, see, we've been giving them all kinds of money, for this the food, to that GHF, Gaza Foundation fund, that is murdering people who come to the spots to get food. But then he turns around and says, I get no thanks for this. Well, this isn't about you, Trump. This is about people being able to get basic food, baby formula, just water, okay? It's disgusting.
Thank you. You are the reason, one of them, the other one is called Joe Biden, that there is starvation.
Yeah.
So again, this gets back to your theme that the government is unhinged. I would drop the word the. Government is unhinged, apparently. Period. The concept of government is unhinged. Biden was unhinged. Trump is unhinged. And we all suffer for it, Karen.
Yeah. The idea of unhinged, we use it as to say someone is unhinged is an insult. But what I think is really what we're feeling is that just like a door that's unhinged, partially or completely, you try to open that door, you put pressure on it, it doesn't open. The pressure results in something very different than what you want to see. And that's how our government is operating for the American people. It's not just that the majority of the voters voted for Trump because of what he said he was going to do. So we said, well, we're going to put our force behind this, and then this is what we'll get. But in fact, we put our force behind this, and we're getting something totally different. We're getting more war, more insecurity, more inflation, more weak and kind of an economy that's not really booming. It's not really growing. And this, it's funny how he fired his labor numbers person just the other day. And if this was Biden's person, you could say, oh, well, it was time for her to go and get a new one. But he said, well, your numbers, you keep rewriting them months later, and it makes me look bad. Well, that's not the point,
No.
This is why I canceled my DoorDash subscription and switched to Community. After months spending way too much on DoorDash, I got bored.
The government is trying to give a report card on itself, and the people in this country know exactly how the economy is doing, because the people in this country live the economy. They feel it. They go to the grocery store twice a week. They see what's happening.
Exactly what I was trying to say in one of the economic videos I did on the economy. Basically, I know it. I'm feeling it. I live it. So I know some people don't like us to, or me, or other people that do videos to say things that are negative towards Trump. But look, I voted for him, and I expected just as what she said. And I'm not one that toes the line as if it's a cult or a tribe, and just it has to be 100%. You just follow no matter what blindly. That is not me. I have convictions, I have beliefs, and I have principles, and I stand by particular ones. And if they don't line up, if my candidate or the person I voted for president is doing the opposite of what I expected or thought he was going to do, I am going to say something. I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, well, he's great, rah, 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 no matter what. No. I don't think that's being honest with oneself, and it's really robbing a person of their convictions. So let's go back to this.
They understand the choices that they have to make with their limited resources. They have relatives, or maybe they themselves are looking for work, and they're not finding anything they can live on. So, or they have to take multiple jobs. Yep. This is what America looks like. Mm-hmm. And Trump, Trump's telling us, oh, well, we're going to fix all that. But he knows nothing about anything. And I remember, Herbert Walker Bush got ridiculed because he went into a grocery store and he was very surprised at how the grocery store worked. He hadn't clearly, embarrassed himself. He had never been to a grocery store and bought anything. So he embarrassed himself as a public person. Well, Trump is doing that, not by going to a grocery store, but his decisions and actions are telling not just the world, but Americans that he doesn't know what he's doing. And he's not doing what he promised. And our republic, which we use to communicate to our government, to say, this is what we want, this is what we need, it doesn't work. We've told them what we want. We want peace. We need a healthy economy. Yep. with fewer regulations and more opportunity. We've said that. We're not getting it. The door doesn't work. It's off its hinges.
There you go.
Chris, can you put up the full screen that we crafted from Colonel Kwiatkowski's piece? Unhinged does indeed describe the U.S. government today. Whether you are angered that Trump reversed himself on Epstein or happy that you are getting a consolation prize in the reveal of Obama, Clinton, and Biden criminality, you are ruled by the unhinged. Whether you love the military because it's number one or are happy that the U.S. military is no longer number one, you are ruled by the unhinged. Whether you oppose genocide in Gaza or you cheer it, you are ruled by the unhinged. Karen, this is such a profound, poignant, clear, articulate, direct indictment of government in America today. It should be read by everyone, everywhere.
Amen. I agree. She said it very well. She said it very, very succinctly. So this is where we are now. Regarding, since that was that interview with Helmer was earlier this morning, I think it was, I'm not sure. In any case, obviously, Witkoff has met with Putin once again. And once again, both Trump and Putin said it was a good meeting. They were upbeat about it. That usually has happened with every meeting that Witkoff has had with Putin. I wonder how long that's going to last. I wonder by the end of the week if it's going to be back to something else. Because like Larry Johnson says, he's all over the place. So eventually Trump will be positive, then it'll be negative. Positive, then it'll be negative with Putin. In any case, there's a lot of arrogance going on, no humility. Our government is just, except for a few, are just, especially Trump, are so arrogant, so just full of themselves. And with Trump, it feels like everything revolves around him. And perhaps, Scott Ritter is right. He's a narcissist. Certainly seems that way. Now, others are saying he's mentally going. Who knows? Whether it's mental or whether it's just narcissism or both. Going down this path of arrogance and escalating domination or dominance is surely, according to Scott Ritter and other people we've just talked about, certainly leading down to the Third World War, and unfortunately maybe even nuclear war. The prophecies say, I'll give some credit that they're still talking, that Witkoff goes there. Of course, Witkoff brings back stuff, and then Trump doesn't always agree with that, of course, because he doesn't want to make any concessions. But that's what has to be done. And at least they're talking. Always keeping communication is good, but unfortunately, I don't think that's going to stop what's coming with the World War. What I do know is the more we dig our heels in, our government and people in power in this country, and do dark things and dark crimes and all the stuff that's happening, and also the arrogance, the pride, this whole power crap, the more destruction is going to happen to our country, the United States, which will have the worst, according to Metropolitan Neophytus. We need to humble ourselves. We need to repent. We need to realize that we're one country of many in the world, and that we need to work together with other countries, at least show respect, mutual respect, and be a nice trading partner, not this mess. It's anyway, I'm sure I've babbled on long enough. I hope you got something out of this video. I hope it got you something to think about. Things always come to my mind when watching these things, and I hope some things had you mulling over in your head too. If you want to share them under this video, that'd be great. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for following my channel, and I hope you're having a great evening, morning, or afternoon. Until next time, have a blessed day.